Okay, class. So here I am back with another lecture. And in the previous lecture, I gave you guys a little idea of the basis on which we do the classification of the organism. And the idea was that when the human beings they started to be studying the living organisms, so to be categorizing them or to be putting them into the groups was becoming difficult. So every time the scientists were coming across any of the organisms, so they started to look on toward their outer observable features. And I told you that by the outer observable features, what we mean is that if I ever am gonna encounter any human being in my surroundings, so I am gonna look on toward their outer appearance, that what they have in them. Like their body is gonna be covered with the hairs, they would have the external ears and the stuff like that. But then I told you guys that sometime when we try to be doing the classification on the basis of the outer feature, so this is misleading. Then we have to be seeing their molecular basis, and in the molecular basis, I told you guys earlier that we people are gonna be looking on toward the sequence of the nitrogenous bases that we have got within the DNA. And the third thing that we have to be considering in terms of classifying the living organisms, so that was a kind of sequence that we have got for the amino acids in any of the proteins that we have. So the thing here is that there was this scientist, a Swedish naturalist rather, and his name was Linnaeus. So he devised this system of putting the living organisms into the subdivisions. And when he was putting them into the groups, so he became more and more specific to becoming toward be to the level of the species. Like we are gonna see in a while that he started from the domain and then ultimately he came to the very bottom or very specific thing, and over there we would have the species with us. Okay, the scenario was, or the problem initially was, that whenever we try to come across any of the living organisms, so we have got the name for it, but the issue that he faced was that everywhere in the world, the living creatures or the living organisms, they have got a different name. Like for instance, if I were to say cat, so that is something that we call in English, but usually everywhere we go in the world, so ultimately the cat has got some different name for it, so it was making a classification different. So this Linnaeus he actually decided that why not we should give the species some scientific name, and a scientific name, like if I were to talk about us, the human being, so scientifically the binomial name that we have got, so this is Homo sapiens. So you see that the scientific name of the human beings, this has got the first part and this has got the second part. So there are two parts of the scientific name. The first part that you have got for the scientific name, so this is the genus. And the second part that you have got for the scientific name, so that is the species. So this is actually the binomial system. And you guys just have to be remembering is that whenever you are supposed to be writing the scientific name, so it has to be in italics. And the first word of the genus, as in this case, is Homo, so that should be capital, and rest of the words they should be in the lower case. Okay, and in between the species and in between the genus, so you people are supposed to be placing a gap here. So the situation here is that how come the scheme of the classification would go on, like in your course, it starts from the kingdom, then we would have the phylum, then we are going to have the class, and there is going to be the order, the family, the genus, and ultimately we would come toward the species. Now here is something that we teach our student in the higher classes, like in A levels. So in the classification, the top, you could say, the thing that we have got in the hierarchical model, that would be the domain. And major of the domains that we have got at your level, we say that they are two, but overall there are a total of three domains that we have with us. The first domain would be for the eukaryotes, and earlier we have said that wherever the eukaryotes are there, so there are a lot of difference between the eukaryotes and the prokaryotes, but the eukaryotic organism, they would have their genetic material or the DNA, and it would be enclosed within the nucleus. The other, you could say, domain that we have got, so this is a prokaryote domain, and in the prokaryote we have got usually existing bacteria. Now, as closely associated with the prokaryotes, we have got these archie with us, like they are similar to the bacteria, usual bacteria, but there are some minute differences that you people are gonna be encountering in your future classes. So if I were to say that how many of the organism we would have in the eukaryotes, so there would be 100 to 1000 and even in the millions, and the same would go for the prokaryotes, like generally the bacteria are so many in number, and the archie would again be very great in number. So if I were to become very specific that okay, if I have come across a eukaryotes and if I further start to be putting them into their respective phylum and then into their class and into their order, and then ultimately we would go toward the family thing, then here we are going to come toward the genus, and then ultimately we would end up at the species level. So guys, this is actually the hierarchical model that we have got in terms of the classification. Now what hierarchical model is, like if you are working in some of the organization, so the top officer that you have got in your organization is CEO, then there would be some chief financial officer, and then ultimately you're going to come toward the very basic employees that are going to be there. So here you see, like here when we go from the bottom to the top, so the number of the organisms increases because we be general here. But when I'm going to come toward the bottom of the hierarchical model, then we become more and more specific. So the number of the organism is gonna be decreasing when we go downward. But when we go upward, we become more generalized and the number of the species are gonna increase. Like we human beings are the eukaryotes and we are in the domain eukaryotes. But among the many eukaryotes, if I become specific to us only the Homo sapiens, so their number would be far more less as compared to general eukaryotes that we have got on the planet Earth. Now, the other thing that we have to be seeing in this topic is that we actually have to stick to the kingdom thing. Okay, like we have to be sticking here to this specific thing for a while, and then we would see later into this that what we have got here. So among the kingdoms that we have, so there are major of five kingdoms that we have to be talking about. The first kingdom that we have got, that is the kingdom Animalia, we say. Okay, and then the second kingdom that we have with us, so they are the Plantae, and the third kingdom that we have got with us, so they are the funguses with us. And the fourth thing that we have got, so they are some kind of a dustbin kingdom in which we have got some organisms. Some of them they are animal-like, some of them they are plant-like. And in the future lectures, we are gonna see in real that how do the cells of the animals, the plants, the fungus, and the protoctist they look like. So these Animalia, Plantifungus, and the Protoctus, so they fall into the domain, and that domain that we have got, that domain is the eukaryotes with us. So no matter whatsoever the kingdom in the domain eukaryote I have got, so in their cells we people are gonna have the DNA, and that DNA would be enclosed by the nuclear envelope. So further in this, in these kingdoms that I have written for you, like I should not forget to be mentioning the fifth kingdom that we have to be talking about. So they are the bacterias, or in other word, we refer to them as a prokaryotes as well. So among these five kingdoms, we actually have to look on toward the further classes that we have got in this kingdom Animalia. So in the kingdom Animalia, the situation that we have to be focusing on at the moment, that we would be talking about the vertebrates. And this word vertebrate is not something new, because we know that the vertebrates are those organisms that have got the backbone in them. And in the vertebrates, we have got further five classes to be discussing. And among those five classes, in the kingdom Animalia, we have got the mammals. And after the mammals, we have got the birds with us. And then we have got the reptiles with us. We have got the amphibians with us. And then finally, the fifth and the last class among the kingdom Animalia, so that would be the fish with us. Now, we have set a criteria for the mammals that if such features would be available in newly discovered organism that we come in the wild, so if it is gonna possess those specific characteristics, then it would be a mammal. If it won't, then it would not be a mammal. Like we are mammals actually. So you see that our body is covered with the hairs, and we have got the external ears, the pinnas, external pinnas. And as far as our young ones are concerned, like the female individuals I'm talking about, so they develop the placentas in them. Right? Like there is gonna be the placenta, and with the placenta, this growing fetus would be attached and it would be getting the nutrition from their mother. And what is the basic scheme of this is that the male individual is gonna come and he is gonna release the sperm here. The mother from the ovaries is gonna release the egg cells out of here, and the sperm cell and the egg cell they're gonna fuse, and then they would make a structure that is zygote that would be converted into embryo, and ultimately the fetus is gonna be developing within the bodies of the females. And over here we have got this structure to which this fetus would be attached, and that structure would be placenta with us. Now, if any of the organism they have got these characteristics in them or these features in them, so for sure we are gonna be putting them into the kingdom Animalia and into the class of the Animalia, that would be the mammal. If such features are not available, then we would not regard them or we would not put them into the kingdom Animalia, and ultimately we will not put them into the mammal class of this kingdom Animalia that we have. So likewise, you see that as far as these birds are concerned, so they're gonna have the beaks, they're gonna lay the eggs, they're gonna have the feathers, they would have their hind limbs, but the forelimbs they are modified to be acting as the wings that would allow them to fly. Now, in the further, you could say, third subclass that we have got in the kingdom Animalia, so we have the reptiles like the snakes and the stuff like that. So their body would have some hard kind of shells that are not removable. They're gonna lay the eggs, and when they would lay the eggs, so this is gonna have a rubbery shell on it. Like the situation with the birds is that they're gonna lay the eggs, and those eggs they would have a hard shell, but the eggs of the reptiles they're gonna have a rubbery shell onto it. Now for the amphibians that we have, so their skin is gonna be moist. Like the first example that should click in your mind concerning the amphibians is the frog. So whenever we imagine the frog, so we feel like they have got some kind of a slimy or the moist skin in them. So the unique thing about the amphibians is that they are gonna lay the eggs, and those eggs would not have any shell onto it. They are once half the life stage that is in the form of the larvae, so this is gonna live in the water and it would have the gills and in them. But when they are gonna become adults, so they're gonna come on toward the land, and when they would be on the land, so they're gonna be having the lungs for the breathing purposes. Now comes the fish here. So as far as this fish is concerned, so among the fish, you see that again they're gonna lay the eggs. And when they would be laying the eggs, so those eggs again they are gonna be lacking the shell onto it. So here I'm quickly gonna take you toward the table where I've got the all the detail of it, and here we have got the mammals. They're gonna have the fur or hair on their skin. The female, they're gonna have the placenta that would attach to the growing fetus. And then the young ones of the mammals, the mothers are gonna feed them with the help of their mammary glands. They would have the external ears, like you see, for the human beings, we have got these external ears. Now, this is something you would not kind of see in the case of the birds. And then they are endothermic, and by the word endothermic what we mean is that they would be able to regulate their own internal body temperature. They would not be relying on toward the external temperature. Among the various examples that we have got, so we have the horse, and we have the dog, then we have the squirrels, and then we have got the humans. So all of them they are regarded as the mammals. Why? Because they have got these main features in them. Moving further, we have got the birds, and for the birds they're gonna have the feathers, and they're gonna have two legs, then they are gonna have two wings instead of the four limbs. They're gonna have these, you could say, two wings in them. They're gonna lay the eggs again, and they would have a hard shell onto it. And you see, you may have looked onto the crows or the parrots, so they're gonna have the beak, and like us they're endothermic. And by the endothermic what we mean is that they would regulate the body temperature from within their bodies. Among the various examples that we have to be remembering in context of the birds, so we have the parrots and this thing, and then we're gonna have the eagle with us. Moving onward, we have to be talking about the reptiles. As I mentioned earlier, their skin is gonna be dry and it is gonna have some fixed scales on it. And like the birds, they're gonna lay the eggs. The eggs will not have any hard shell onto it, but rather than there is gonna be this rubbery shell onto them. And among the usual examples that we have got for the reptiles, so there is gonna be the snake with us. Then there is gonna be the turtle and the iguana. So they are the example of the reptiles. Now comes the amphibians. Their skin is smooth or moist, like water kind of a situation would be present on the top of their skins. And the adults of these amphibians, they gonna live on the land. And when they are on the land, so they would have the lungs like us. But initially, when they lay their eggs in the water, and out of the water, the larvae are gonna grow out of them. So when they would be in the water, so they are going to use the gills for that purpose. And among the common usual examples that we have got for these amphibians, we have the frog, then we have the toad, and then this is the newt with us. Now comes the fish with us. They're gonna have the scale just like the reptiles, but their scales are not gonna be hard, they're not going to be dry, but rather than they would have loose wet scales. And again, they would have the gills to breathe. They are going to lay the eggs. Unlike the mammals, they don't want to give the bird. They don't want to give the bird, but they're going to lay the eggs. And those eggs, again, they would not have any shells onto it. And among the examples, we have got these flounder and grippers and stuff like that. So this was all that you guys have to be remembering in terms of the classification that we do for the classes of the vertebrates. Okay, so here you see the snake is a reptile, and we have got this fish, and then we have got this amphibian, like frog is given here, and then we have got the bird here, and then here is a mammal with us. Like in the example, you see, I have given the diagram of the cows. Now, moving further, we have got something else to be considering about, and they are gonna be the invertebrates. Okay, guys. So they're gonna fall under the category of the kingdom Animalia, but they are invertebrates. And as far as the word invertebrate is to be considered, so you see that those organisms that are not gonna have any of the backbone in them, or they are gonna lack the backbone in them, so they would be the invertebrates. Now, we have to be thinking of the invertebrates and that specialized kind of the invertebrates whose body is gonna be made up of multiple segments. And in each of the segments, if we were to see the jointed pair of legs, so such invertebrates, they are the arthropods. And among the arthropods that we have to be talking in this specific lecture, so you have to be remembering these words. Like we have got the insects. After the insects, we have got these myriapods. After the myriapods, we have got among the arthropods are arachnids. And moving from the arachnids, there would be the fourth one. And such arthropods or the invertebrates, so they are crustaceans with us. So among the vertebrates, we have got mammals, birds, amphibian, reptiles, and fish. Among the invertebrates, and that too in the arthropods, we have these insects, the myriapod, the arachnids, and then we have these crustaceans with us. So as far as this word invertebrate is concerned, so they're gonna lack a backbone. And among the invertebrates, as I have said, that if we have got the invertebrates and if they have the jointed pair of legs, so that would be the arthropods. And the arthropods are further classified as I have said insects, the myriapod, the arachnids, and the crustaceans. So here we have to be thinking. Now, I would like to mention for you guys is that what do we need to be keeping in mind? Because for biology subject, there is a little bit of the memorization required. So this is a topic where you guys need to be remembering them. If you would forget about the characteristics, then ultimately you will not have a good grip in the exams questions. So you see, I'm going to give you some of the situation concerning the insects. Now, wherever the word insect is going to come, so what you have to be remembering is that there would be three body parts in them. Like the first body part, this is gonna be the head. The second body part, so this is gonna be the thorax. And the third body part that we have got in them, so this would be regarded as abdomen. So insect have got three body parts, and then they are gonna have three pairs of legs in them, and then they are going to have two pair of wings in them. One would be functional that would allow them to fly, the other one would be the vestigial with us. Now, moving from the insects, the other thing that we have got here, so these are the myriapods. And among the myriapods, like there is a little thing that you must know that their body has got multiple segments. And in each of the segments, we would see that there would be jointed pair of legs in them. And then they're going to have the antennas in them. Now, moving from the myriapods, the other thing that we have got with us, so they are the arachnids. Okay. And among the arachnids, you see insect has got three body parts. These arachnids are going to have two body parts, like at the top we guys are gonna have the head, and then going down, we're gonna have a part, and that part is referred to as cephalothorax. Okay, and from 2, like I've got 2, I'm going to multiply 2 with 2, so I would have got 4 number. And you must remember for the arachnids that they would have exact 4 pairs of legs in them. Now the last, you could say, among these arthropods that I'm talking about, so we have got these crustaceans. And from the crustaceans, the word that should click in your mind is that they gonna have some kind of the hard exoskeleton in them, and that hard exoskeleton would be made up of calcium. So these are some of the major things that I have highlighted for you guys. So that means if you're gonna keep those in your mind, then you're gonna have some good grip on it. So I'm quickly gonna take you toward the table now. So here you see that we have these myriapods, and their body would be made up of many segments, like multiple segments. And then onward, each of the segment would have at least one pair of legs in it, and they're going to have one pair of antenna in it. Then we have them sets. So they would have 3 body parts. The first one would be the head, the second one would be the thorax, and the third one would be the abdomen. And from this 3, you have to remember 3, that they would have 3 pairs of jointed legs. And then they're gonna have 2 pairs of the wings in them, and among them one would be the functional one, the other one would be the vestigial that would not allow them to fly. And then they would have one pair of the antennas in them. Then the example that we have got for this is butterfly. For the myriapods, we have the centipede. I'm gonna show you the diagrams for the centipede as well. Now the thing doesn't end here. The third arthropod is the arachnid. They would have 2 body parts. One of them would be the cephalothorax, and then they're gonna have the abdomen in them. Okay, and then there would be 4 pairs of the jointed legs in them, and they're not gonna have any of the antennas in them. Okay, guys. So you see, like you may correct it for a while, that head is not there, but rather than there is gonna be cephalothorax at the top, and then there is gonna be the abdomen in them. So this is something that you must remember for the retina. So cephalothorax, and here we have got the abdomen in them. Likewise, the common example for the arachnid are the spiders with us. Now here comes the crustaceans. And the crustaceans, they would have more than 4 pair of legs. Like for the arachnid, there are exact 4 pair of legs, but they would have more than 4 pair of legs. And they're gonna have the chalky exoskeleton in them, and it would be made up of the calcium. Like the scenario was with the fish and the adult of the amphibians, they're gonna breathe through the gills, and they would have no pair of antennas in them. Like the arachnids have got no antennas, but the crustaceans, they have got the antennas. The insects have got the antennas, and the myriapod have got the antennas. Now here I would like you to see the diagram. Here we have got the arachnid. Then like you see, I have given a diagram of the lobster or the crab. So the thing that should click in your mind is this hard exoskeleton. For the insects, 3 body parts. And here we have got the myriapods. Like if you were to see here, so you guys must know that like it has got multiple segmented body. And in each of the segment, we have got at least one pair of legs in them, okay? Like 2 legs or one pair of legs. Now this was all about the further classes that we have got in the kingdom Animalia, and we have further split them up into the vertebrates and invertebrates. Now, how come this be a chance that we be forgetting about the classification of the plants? So how come this be possible that where we are talking about the kingdom Animalia, so we should be talking about the plant here as well because they are an important part of our environment. The classification of the plants has got very simple thing. Like it is further subdivided into 2 major classes. We have got the non-flowering, and then we have got the flowering plants. The non-flowering plant, we have an example of the ferns with us. As far as these flowering plants are concerned, so further there are gonna be the monocotyledonous plants, and then there are gonna be the dicotyledonous plants. And we will see in a while that what differences we have got among the monocotyledonous and dicotyledonous plants. So you see here is that these plants are non-flowering plants that we have with us, so they are the ferns. Okay, so here we have got the ferns. So the ferns, they don't, they have the leaves in them, and these leaves, they are modified to become fronds. And for the reproduction point of view, they're never gonna produce the flowers, but rather than they're gonna develop the spores for that purpose. So if you see the diagram for this fern, so their leaves are the fronds, and when they have to be reproducing, so they're gonna be developing some kind of spores in them, and with the help of the spores, they're gonna reproduce. And now here comes the flowering plant. The situation here is, guys, that the flowers, like at some point, you're gonna be studying about the gametophytes idea. The male part of the flower is different, the female part of the flower is different. But in this course, the flowering plant that we have with us, so the male and the female part, they would be lying simultaneously. And why the plants they have to develop the flower? So the answer is very simple. That is in terms of the reproduction which they have to be carrying out. And for that, you may have learned in your some of the junior classes that in the flower we have got these filaments and then we have the anthers, okay? And they go like this. And in these anthers, we have got the pollen grains that would have the male nuclei. Then there would come this stigma, and then there is going to be the style here. And when I'm going to go downward, so there is going to be the ovary here. So for the reproductive point of view, the pollen grains must fall from the anther to the stigmas. So flowering plants are important with respect to the situation we are going to see in a while, that for these flowering plants in the monocots and the dicots that I'm talking about, so we will try to differentiate among them on the basis of the flower petals that we have in them and on the basis of how come they're going to be the shape of their leaves and in the term of the veins that they are going to have. So simply flowering plants, they need to be reproducing with the help of the flowers and they're going to develop the fruits and the seeds in them. And the seeds they would be produced within the ovaries. Like I have shown you guys that here we have the ovaries where the fertilization between the male nuclei which is coming from the pollen grain and the female nuclei that we have got in the ovary. So the seed would be formed and this ovary later would be converted into the fruit. Now the thing is, like if ever you guys are gonna go into the garden and you have to be distinguished between the monocotyledonous plants and the dicotyledonous plants, then what you have to see. So if I were to see some flower in the garden, and if I would see that the flower has a petals, either there are three petals or the multiple of three, like six petals or nine petals, then that would be a monocotyledonous plant. If I were to come across a flower where the number of the petals, if I try to count them up, so the number of petals are four or five or multiple of four or five, then this is gonna be a dicotyledonous plant. Then we have to be talking about their leaves. If I were to come across a leaf, and in that leaf, if I were to see some veins, like you guys may have seen the leaves for many of the plant, and you may have observed that they have got some veins in them. If you guys see some parallel veins with no branches or no reticulated branches in terms of the veins which they have for their leaves, so ultimately, that is gonna be a monocotyledonous plant. For the dicotyledonous plant, we have to remember is that their leaves are gonna be branched. And when we would try to be looking on toward the veins that carry the water into the leaves, so the veins they would be branching, they would be reticulated. So the leaves of the monocots, the veins are parallel, and the leaves would be narrower. For the dicotyledonous plant, the leaves would be broader, and the veins that we have got, it's gonna have multiple branches in them. So you see, like for the leaf thing, the monocotyledonous plants, they're gonna have the parallel veins in them. The dicotyledonous, they're gonna have the reticulated veins in them. The reticulated simply mean as that if I were to see some branches for the veins of the leaves, web-like kind of a orientation, so it would be, you could say reticulated veins, and that is a characteristic of the dicotyledonous plant. The monocotyledonous plant leaves are gonna be narrower, but the dicotyledonous plant that we have got, so they're gonna be broader. If you were to see the diagrams here, so you see, like here I have got this monocotyledonous plant. Their flower has total of three petals in it. And if I were to see this plant on the other way around, so you see this is one petal and this is the second petal. This is third petal, this is fourth petal, and then this is fifth petal. So this is a dicotyledonous plant. If you were to see their leaves, so here you see I have got a broader leaf, and in the broader leaf, the situation further is that there would be the presence of some reticulated or branching veins in them. And if you guys see for the monocotyledonous plant, So we have the narrow leaf, and in the narrow leaf, there would be the parallel veins, there would be no reticulated veins. So here we are done with understanding the classification of the kingdom Animalia, and in them we have seen the vertebrates and invertebrates, and for the kingdom Plantae, we have further split them into the flowering and non-flowering, and in the flowering we further have discussed about the monocotyledonous and dicotyledonous. And in our next class, we are going to look on toward the cell structures of these five kingdoms that we have got in this classification system. So